Caledonian Railway 956 class. In before someone's like, it's actually Caledonian Railway or something. I think it's a hard C, but it might be a soft C. You know, C's are funny like that, but I always thought it was Caledonian. So I'm gonna go with that. That doesn't really matter. 956 class. These were 3-cylinder 460 steam locomotives, and they were used on the Caledonian Railway from 1921. They were also the largest design operated by a Scottish railway. They were pretty big locomotives. They were very large and impressive. And in terms of, like, their appearance, yeah, that stuck. Like, they were good-looking trains. Also, they were really just freaking terrible. They were described by several authors in various ways, but one of the quotes I'm gonna list is that monumental flop of all time, or as ineffectual giants. So, yeah, the biggest problem with these is their inability to steam. A steam engine, as I'm sure most of you are aware, require, steam to operate, and a big part of that is building steam pressure, and for various reasons, these engines just could not maintain steam pressure. Firemen always struggled to keep them up to pressure for them to actually, function. They couldn't build enough steam. That was major, and, that's on top of the other minor problems, like too small of an ash pan, which caused choking in the grates. That was good too, why not just add that on top of it? And they never really got any better, unfortunately. Because they were non-standard, they weren't even considered to be rebuilt, so they were just withdrawn. And as far as I can tell, they were scrapped. There were only 4 of them, so, The British Rail Standard Class 8. Why do you hate me? I don't try to hate you, but you're pushing it. You really are. In fact, I chose this one specifically to avoid a diesel, and yet it's still you. You didn't even just fail at diesels. I mean, you did. There's plenty more of those. But the Class 8 is a steamer. A really impressive-looking steam engine. How do you... Ugh. I can't deal with these people. I can't deal with them. I don't want to address it anymore. It's just a thing that keeps happening to me. There's no escape. The Class 8 was a single example of a locomotive. A 462 Pacific. It was built in 1954. It's also known as the Duke, and I'm just going to keep calling it that. Rather, Duke of Gloucester, I think is how you say that. The British people are going to be like, actually it's pronounced Gloucester or something. I'm sorry, I'm American, leave me alone. We already won the revolution. I'll throw the tea in the harbor again. Don't you tempt me. The Duke had significant issues when it was first introduced. It was a poor steamer from the get-go, but on top of that, it also had heavy fuel consumption. Large engines tend to be that way, but if you're going to be taking a lot of fuel, you better be working. And it didn't steam well, so it was eating fuel and not actually doing anything as a result. The poor draughting of the locomotive meant that it couldn't adhere to timetables very good, and even though British Railways did take some evaluations to try to see what they could do, they got nothing but negative feedback, and it only operated for 8 years. Now you'd be curious as to why these photos you're seeing are actually all really recent, like they're in color and in, like, good definition, like these obviously weren't taken in the 60s, so what gives? Well, the Duke actually stands as a pretty wholesome story when it comes to train history. He was originally going to be scrapped. He was sent to the Wooden Brothers scrapyard in Barry Val of Glamorgan, South Wales. But a group of railway enthusiasts actually became wise to this and decided to purchase it outright. They spent the next 13 years refurbishing it and making modifications to the design. The result is that nowadays, and yes, the Duke still runs, it's actually one of the most efficient and powerful steam locomotives to ever run on British railways. Class 8 is a testament to what happens when people who really love trains and locomotives and all things going into rail fanning, or whatever you call it, come together to do something great. And I just love the massive fail on British Rail's part here. Like, okay, you guys couldn't figure out how to make this steam engine work. You didn't bother with it, you decided to scrap it. So a bunch of rail fans who just care. Like, they just care. Choose to spend their own money, buy the engine, spend 13 years fixing it on their own, and make it run better than you ever could. To the point that it still runs now. Wow. Look, I mean, I'm all for a win on the rail fans' part here. This is wonderful, but also, like, how inept are you people? Why are you doing this to me? Why are we having this conversation again? Every single list, I look at your stupid logo, and every single time you have disappointed me. Why are you the way that you are? It's what I want to know. The Fontaine 440. Sorry, I can't even look at it. Give me a second. Okay, I trust you have some questions here, and I don't blame you. What the heck is going on with this thing? Well, a little backstory. Alright, so the Fontaines were a pair of engines built by the Grant Locomotive Works. They were designed by Eugene Fontaine of Detroit. Although they're a French design, they were built in America, so I don't know who can be blamed for this. I'm just gonna go with Eugene Fontaine for it. And we're not gonna get national about this. We're just gonna say it was Eugene's fault. So Eugene really thought that this was a good idea. So you're probably wondering what's going on with the extra wheels and why they're not on the ground and what the deal is with the cylinder being, up like that. Like, that's not nothing about this is normal, is what I'm trying to say. So the crank turns the wheels like a normal engine. You can see it there. That wheel moves, and then because it's touching the lower wheel, it will turn like a gear, except like not like a gear because there's no pegs like on a gear, and that will drive the engine forward. Now you may be wondering, well, what the heck is the point of that? Because why not just angle it downwards like a normal steam engine and just, move the driving wheels directly? This is an excellent question, and I will give you the answer that I have been given, which is a really dumb one, but this is honestly what Eugene thought. Eugene Fontaine's explanation is that he felt this design would actually increase the speed of the engine overall. Quite why he thought this is anyone's guess, because the Fontaines weren't any more capable than a normal steam engine at that time. Like, the Americans that, the Fontaine is very similar to, and was eventually rebuilt into, was just as capable as this weird, off-putting, bizarre technique of, like, having the wheels together. And in fact, this is arguably worse, because you have these wheels touching each other, and the drive is dependent on those wheels being in contact. That means that there's just another surface where wheel slip can occur. Like, the wheels aren't like gears. There's no pegs, like I said. So if the wheels slip, like, it's just one more thing that can go wrong for literally no benefit. Like I said, they were rebuilt into conventional American types. 440s again, but with like the cylinder and the crank and everything in the right place. And when they did that, they were fine. Like in terms of like their actual inner workings, their boilers, everything like that, they're pretty much okay. Like they weren't anything terrible or exciting in that regard. It's just this weird thought that Eugene had with the wheels being. I don't know why you thought that was gonna work. The IC4, manufactured by the Italian train company Ansaldo Breda. Okay, I'm gonna be real here. This is one of the most recent things I've ever discussed on this channel. And in fact, this is the first time, unless you count the Pacers, which I'm pretty sure have all been withdrawn by now, this is the first time where we're talking about a train that is technically still in service. This thing is still being used. And there's a lot to unpack in this topic, and I assure you, there is no amount of, fast talking that I can do that will really explain what a absolute mess this entire story is. So I'm giving you a very, very, very abridged version of the events involving the IC4. Now, the IC4 was manufactured by Ansaldo Breda, like I said, and it was meant for the Trans-Great Belt routes of Danske Statsbaner, which is Denmark's national railway operator. We're just going to call them DSB because Lord knows I've already mispronounced it. And in fact, I may mispronounce a lot of things because I don't speak Danish. These trains were purchased under DSB's Good Trains for Everyone plan. which is really wholesome, and I like it. But this didn't go well, because the original contract said these things were supposed to enter service in 2003. And it wasn't until 2007 that the first train set, because they were sold in sets, finally entered service for testing. So we're already, 4 years late. And that's just one train. They ordered many that weren't delivered. And believe me, this controversy runs deep into government corruption and fraud claims and a whole bunch of other things involving Ansado Breda, where they just seem either sketchy at best or just really inept. Perhaps both, because the government of Denmark had spent a great deal of money on these new trains, as did the DSB. Yet, the trains weren't being delivered, and even the ones that were suffered serious mechanical issues. It didn't help that they already had to spend money lengthening the platforms just for these new trains, so they spent all this money to set things up for them, and when they were delivered, they were late, and they weren't working. They suffered many electronic issues mostly, and as well as an overabundance of exhaust, which these are supposed to be environmentally efficient, so good work there, guys. One of the more alarming flaws was that there's an onboard computer system that's supposed to help stop the train if there's a signal that says to stop. Well, apparently this system has a bunch of bugs, because 2 of the trains blew through stop signals. This resulted in the entire fleet, this was in 2011, so they had a few more, like 17 or so, give or take. They ordered like 70, by the way, just so we're clear, being taken off the rails until they could figure out what the heck happened, because they're lucky nobody was killed. And like I said, this story goes on and on and on, to the point that it became not even worth it. What was worse is that in 2014, it got to the point where not only were the trains, such a pain in the butt with the constant mechanical issues, but they couldn't even be scrapped, because if they scrapped the trains, the amount of money they would get back would nowhere near cover their operating costs. And the DSP would have to file for bankruptcy if that happened. Like I said, this is a serious abridged version of these things, and they are still currently used, but right now the DSP plans to phase them out by 2024 because they're just not worth it. Hilariously, one of the amazing controversies here is that one of the trains that was supposed to be given to Denmark was actually given to the former dictator of Libya, Muammar Gaddafi, in 2009 by the Prime Minister of Italy, Silvio Berlusconi. Now, seriously, I'm not making that up. Now, here it is on Google Maps. It's right here. It's still there, sitting there. This is such a... wow. I don't even know where to begin. I honestly never thought I'd ever talk about a train that was still being used on this series, but this is such a meat of a topic that I just couldn't resist. Kind of feel bad for Denmark. But believe it or not, this is not the only bad train that Ansado Breda delivered to a country in Europe. The Ansado Breda V250, or the NS High Speed V250, is another high-speed train that Ansado Breda was contracted to deliver to a country in Europe, in this case Belgium and the Netherlands. And I bet you can't guess what happened. No, I bet you can't. Delays. Constant delays. And in this case, the trains were even worse. That's why it's in the #1 spot. Because these tended to, just fall apart. Now, really, some of the floor plates were found falling out of them. Really. They were terrible. If you're wondering why these countries seem to keep contracting Ansado Breda, even though they seem really bad at their jobs, well, this is only in the last 2 decades. Before all this happened, Ansado Breda wasn't that bad of a company. They actually made trains that were, halfway decent. So it wasn't like their history suggested that this sort of thing would happen. However, I do want to point out that there was a bidding war to do these contracts for these countries between several companies. 2 of the companies in particular are actually a little familiar. Alstom bid to do a train, they made the French TGV, and Siemens input a bid, and they did the German ICE trains, both of which were alarmingly successful. Ansado Breda underbid the competition and said that their train would be faster. So let's think about that for a second. You're a company that's bidding lower than everybody else, but saying your train's going to be better for less. Because I don't know how familiar you are with, exchange of, commerce and things like that, and economics and capitalism and all this stuff. But generally, you get what you pay for. And if you're paying for less, you're gonna get less. And that's absolutely what happened here. The trains are complete garbage. They had numerous technical problems, and hilariously, when Belgium called out Ansaldo Breda on this, Ansaldo Breda tried to blame them for running the trains in the snow, even though the trains were supposed to be capable of handling the snow, because I don't know if this is news to any of you, but it snows in Belgium. That's your problem. Oh, you ran into the snow. You should have done that. Dude, it's Belgium. Of course there's snow there. Are you saying your train can't touch snow? Because I got news for you, you're selling to a place with snow. Like, you can't blame them when you specifically state that the train should be able to handle that. Like, that was one of the requirements, and you didn't deliver. Ansaldo Breda, by the way, isn't really a thing anymore. It was purchased by Hitachi Rail, actually, in 2015. Hitachi is another rolling stock manufacturer. They're Japanese. So from what I can tell, most of their deliveries have been pretty good, so hopefully now that they're under new ownership, Ansaldo Breda can stop messing around and screwing people over. So with that, until next time, this is Darkness, the Bidwell of Fawn, farewell.